Behind me, I have two American V-twin fixed fairing motorcycles in my garage, and today one of those is going to have to go. That is right, I've got the 2020 Indian Challenger, and we are going to be comparing it to my personal, keep in mind this is my personal, this isn't a new motorcycle, this is my choice on what I have to do. I have to get rid of one of these bikes. I shouldn't say have to, but I'm choosing to because, well, frankly, I just don't have space for two fixed fairing baggers. I certainly don't need two with the same style fairing, and technically I have three fixed fairing motorcycles in my garage. Take a look. We've got the 2017 Roadglide Ultra. We've got the 2020 Indian Challenger. We also have a 2018 Road King with an aftermarket fixed fairing. We've got a 2019 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. And then we've got an old Indian Chopper, an old Scout. We've got an old 2003 Harley Davidson Fat Boy. And of course, the Black Forest by Zero. It's Zero DSR Black Forest electric motorcycle. And a couple little mini bikes to go along with it. And don't forget, I have my Warhorse. That's right, I have a 1996 Electric Glide Standard, but that's down at the clubhouse here at my campground, the K River. So needless to say, y'all, I gotta cut it down, man. I gotta make a tough decision here on what I'm gonna do and which bike I'm gonna keep in this garage. And more importantly, which bike I'm gonna put under my butt. So we've got a big year ahead of us with over 40,000, I think maybe, fingers crossed, maybe closer to 50,000 miles this year. So I've got these two bikes here, and unfortunately they are both on the chopping block, and only one of them is going to survive this video. Let's get directly into the comparison. Okay, to compare these two motorcycles, I'm going to go over basically two different categories. One is going to be the motorcycle itself, and then the other, we're going to touch on some things that are brand specific, and frankly, I think both are relevant for me making this decision. A quick disclaimer. Whichever bike I decide against today will be replaced with a different motorcycle in my garage and added to my riding roster. I would like to hear from all of you what you think I should be replacing one of these American baggers with. So let me know down in the comments below, and if you have not yet, take this time to go down and click that subscribe button if you are watching on YouTube, which you should be. If you're watching on Facebook, I thank you. But make your way over to YouTube, it helps me out, and it costs you nothing different. Keep in mind as I go over these topics that these are my opinions, okay? There may be some facts littered in here, but really all I'm doing is trying to make a decision on which bike to keep on my roster for 2020. I'm just gonna give you my opinions and my experiences while riding these bikes. I by no means intend to create the great debate. So number one on the list is going to be comfort. I am a long distance rider, and making those long distance trips and being comfortable on those long distance trips may be the single most individually important thing for me when it comes to riding motorcycle. If you're not a long distance rider, it may not be the same for you. When it comes to comfort, I have to give the nod to the Indian Challenger. It is, I think, a superior chassis. I think it comes with factory suspension that is superior to that of the Harley Davidson. Now that's not to say Harley Davidson isn't going to come out with something new to challenge the Challenger. Challenge the Challenger? Does that make sense? Anyhow, as it stands today, I think comfort-wise, the Indian Challenger just has better maybe geometry. It has the inverted front suspension, which I love. It's got a single monoshock rear suspension, which is, in my opinion, better. It's got the cast aluminum frame, which gives you less flex. Design-wise for comfort, I just think it's better. The placement of the dash, I like the fact that the screen is closer to you, making it easier to use the touchscreen when you're going down the road. Overall, it's just a softer, I think better handling bike, which makes it more comfortable. But keep in mind, that's factory to factory. Today we're talking about comparing our bikes, and my Harley has a lot of aftermarket parts that make it much more comfortable than it was from the factory. Things like my signature ASR touring seat that I made along with Zero 3D, you can find a link down in the description below. Things like the Kraus risers and these Fly Moto bars also helped me out a lot with comfort. And maybe one of the most important comfort things I've done to upgrade this motorcycle is the Legend suspension. That Legend suspension has changed the game for me and makes it much, much more comparable to the Indian Challenger. So while the Indian Challenger is from the factory a more comfortable bike, I have to say between these two exact bikes sitting behind me, my 2017 Roadglide is probably a little better set up for me personally, making it a little bit more comfortable for me. So when I'm making a decision, I'm gonna say, even though the Indian is a better riding bike balance-wise, I think all the extras that I've put on this bike really made it more enjoyable for me to ride and more comfortable. My posture's just better. So that brings us to another topic quite directly, and that is aftermarket products. You all know we love to make our bike ours. We like to make it our own. We like to make it different from the next guy. And customizing your bike sometimes can be half the fun of having. And so when it comes to aftermarket parts, unfortunately, Indian just falls behind Harley Davidson in the aftermarket world. There's just more aftermarket parts available to customize your bike for the Harley Davidsons than the Indians. And rightfully so. The Harley Davidson has been in service more years than the Indian, and there are more Harley Davidsons on the road. So you're gonna have more aftermarket customized type options. So that is another real nod to the Harley Davidson, is the fact that I have more options to make the bike mine. The next topic is power. And power is an important one, especially for me. I like to rip. And when you're visiting different parts of the country, you get on some pretty wicked cool roads. And having the power to carve, let's say, mountainsides is amazing. Also, having the power to pass those 18-wheelers when you're out on the interstate, that is also a big deal. Nobody likes riding right next to them, so the more power I got, the quicker I get by them. Now again, from the factory, the Indian does perform better than my Roadglide did in the power department. It had more power. But I have done a lot to customize my Harley Davidson. Here we are back to the aftermarket scene. The Harley Davidson has more options for creating more power. So while from the factory this bike was faster than this bike, today sitting in my garage, this bike is faster than this bike. I have the 114 Stage 4 kit on it. I have the Thundermax tuner. I have the D&D 2-in-1 exhaust. I've got the red shift cams. She's a fast, gnarly Roadglide. Okay, so now we are talking braking. Braking is probably every bit as important as your power. How fast can you stop that machine could just save your life. Here I have to say there's quite a big difference. The braking from the Indian to the Roadglide, again from the factory, far superior on the Indian. It's got bigger brakes, they're I always say Brembro, I don't know why, don't give me a hard time, it's a tongue twister. If I go real slow, I can say I almost want to say bro again. Brembo, it's a tongue twister. True monoblock Brembos on this one, and although I think some of the Harleys do have brakes manufactured by Brembo, they are not as high a quality, they're not as big, and they're not gonna stop you as fast. Now, there are lots of upgrades for that Harley, but I have not done one yet to my brakes. So between these two bikes from the factory, again the nod would go to Indian, but because of the lack of any upgrades on this for my braking, the nod continues to go to the Indian. So the Indian has your better braking, your better stopping power, making it in a lot of ways maybe the safer bike. Another thing to mention here is the dealer network. I know this has been brought up in some of my videos of the past, and I do think it's relevant and worth mentioning. Harley Davidson has many times the dealer network that Indian does, and this does make a difference when you're on the road needing service or just looking for some people to hang out with. The Harley dealerships are everywhere and the network is powerful. They're individually owned, they're not owned by the corporate, so each dealership kind of runs underneath its own guidelines as far as parties and fun and things like that, and they're everywhere. Almost any weekend you can stop by a Harley Davidson dealership in any town and find a good time and great people. So for that reason, Harley today is going to get the nod on the Roadglide. Speaking of dealer network, I think something very relevant to that is culture. The culture for Harley Davidson is obviously stronger than that of the Indian. Now I will say anywhere you look online, Indian is gaining traction and there's no doubt about it. And obviously it's for good reason. They're making great machines. But the culture, running into riders, having people to connect with, the culture of Harley is one that has not been matched, I don't think, by any other brand in the history of the world. I'm traveling around the country, connecting with different riders, getting out there riding, creating charity, and I have to say after a year of having Indian in my stable, I've enjoyed it and we've done some good, but there's been nowhere near the amount of support that I've seen from the Harley culture. Technology is a big thing, and while there are some things that Harley has put into these motorcycles since my 2017, still the 2020 technology, Harley versus Indian, you gotta give the nod to Indian, man. They've got things like mechanical windscreens, which is a big deal. They've got a better screen, display, radio setup. It comes with bigger speakers from the factory. It's a bit more powerful. The sound is better on the interstate. You can actually hear it when you're banging along. It's got simple things like a puddle light underneath it to light up the ground when you park. It's LEDs all the way around. As I mentioned before, I think a superior frame. The compartments are all dampened, kind of like you'd expect in a car. I think technology-wise, the Indian is ahead of the 2020 Roadglides, but way ahead of my 2017 Roadglide. So for that reason, technology and features, you gotta give it to Indian. I think pricing between the two motorcycles is very similar, so if you're out there looking at this video trying to make a decision for yourself, I don't think pricing should really be a concern. I mean, they're within a few $100s, certainly depending on the models, within a couple $1,000s of each other. They're very competitively priced with one another. So ultimately, I'm making a decision for me, and some of my variables may be different than yours. People ride motorcycles for different reasons. If you are the type of person who just wants the best motorcycle with the best performance out of the box from the dealer, and you just want to get on and ride, I think the Indian Challenger is probably a very wise decision. Factory bike to factory bike, nose to nose, I think this would be probably your better decision if your biggest focus is the factory ride quality. But if your idea of motorcycling is the culture, getting together with other people that are sharing the same brand loyalty type scenario as you, or your idea of motorcycling is customizing it and making it yours and unique, Harley-Davidson is probably going to provide you the better experience. You're going to have more dealerships, you're going to have more parties, you're going to have more options to customize your motorcycle. So really, you have to ask yourself, are you about the ride itself, or are you about the culture? Maybe you're like me and you're about both, but one of them has to outweigh the other when you're making this decision. At the end of the day, I'm running a YouTube channel, and my business is showing the world motorcycling through my lens. And while these are both wonderful touring motorcycles that I'm sure would make anybody happy, I myself am looking for a little bit more diversity in my channel, and that's why I had to give up one spot in my garage. So for all the reasons I listed earlier, and what I think is best for the future of my YouTube channel, this is the decision I had to make. The motorcycle I'm going to be keeping is this 2017 Roadglide Ultra. That's right, there are things that are superior about this bike, but at the end of the day, I have to make the best decision for my YouTube channel and for my audience. By choosing the Roadglide, by no means do I exclude the Indian audience from my channel, because I still have that Chieftain Dark Horse right back there. And it is a pretty bike, and I enjoy riding it. Y'all let me know, do you think my choice was intelligent? Would you make the same one? And if not, tell me why. Why would you choose one over the other? For me, my mind is made up. This girl will be going, but then the next question is, what should I replace it with? Y'all let me know down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed our little talk and my little comparison. It was not an easy decision to make, but at the end of the day, I want to give you all the best content I can. Remember guys, we're putting out 5 videos a week every week. You can see I got some of my gear piled up on my couch over there, getting ready for a big old road trip, somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 miles over about 3 weeks, cruising the West. Unfortunately, my Albuquerque dealership meet and greet and charity event was postponed due to this coronavirus thing. There's some city ordinances and they had to shut it down. But we'll still be out there riding, giving you guys some good videos. So do me a favor, go click that subscribe button and just stay tuned, because we'll see you tomorrow.